Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. One of the issues that was going to be a big factor out there, as it always is the question of abortion, pro-choice versus pro-life. Now, somehow, that subject is never discussed or put into the headlines in quite the same manner here in India, although it does affect so many people. Abortion or medical termination of pregnancy, what is it that the law says? What should happen? What should not happen? Should a woman have the right to make the choice? Is there something divine about it that nobody should interfere with? All of those are questions that really need to be discussed and debated, and we're going to make a start right now in the course of this program. I'd like to welcome onto The Big Fight Netra Raghuraman, who's joining us, model and actor. Netra, great that you could join us on the show. We have with us Reverend Dominic Emmanuel, spokesperson of the Delhi Catholic Archdiocese. It's great to have you with us. Sabu George is visiting senior fellow of the Center for Women's Development Studies in New Delhi. Thanks so much for joining us. Dr. Meenakshi Sahota is the head of department of the Department of Obs and Gynae at the Max Hospital in Gurgaon. Thank you for being with us. Maulana Syed Kalbe Rizvi, Islamic scholar, and Dr. Puneet Bedi, gynecologist. And we have a large audience out here, including many women who are going to be speaking out, who all feel rather strongly on the subject. Before we go any further, if I could perhaps just try and establish, because there is a certain degree of confusion on this, what exactly is it that the law actually says in India? Because the question of medical termination of pregnancy in India or abortion always somehow gets linked to sex determination and female feticide and the fact that the sex ratio is getting so much worse. Under what circumstances is abortion legal in India?
I think it is a long history. So we have to look at Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. First of all, abortion is not legal in this country. Medical termination is. And the subtle difference
Isn't that just a question of semantics?
No, it isn't. It is much more clear than that. Medical termination obviously means only for medical reasons that termination can be done. There's no concept of pro-choice, pro-right, or asking for over-the-counter abortions. But since this law was made not as a pro-right law, but as a population lobby law, the population lobby used the garb of MTP to do random abortions, sometimes forced, sometimes coerced, and the medical profession used it as for a very profitable business of female feticide. Okay. So the confusion under the circumstances in this law, there is no three clauses, there is no contention whatsoever. One is when the woman's life is in danger. One is when the baby is unlikely to have any significant, any meaningful life. That means it's grossly abnormal. And the third is when the pregnancy occurs out of rape or abuse. That one can understand. But they slipped in a clause saying that if
when there's a pregnancy
failure
due to
of contraception amongst married couples.
So not for a single.
So as of today, any unmarried woman getting abortion, any widowed woman, any extramarital sex relating to pregnancy termination is completely and totally illegal.
Dr. Meenakshi, if I could just ask you now. So if I understand this correctly, this is what it is. It's illegal for a woman by herself to go in for an abortion. Only a doctor can really decide on it under the circumstances that he said, which is life-threatening pregnancy, pregnancy caused by rape, chances of severe physical or mental abnormalities in the child, which would prevent the child from having a meaningful life. Is that roughly it? And then when there's pregnancy caused by
failure of contraceptive failure and grave injury to the mental health of the mother.
But if the mother says that I'm deeply disturbed by the fact that I'm carrying this child, that is enough for the doctor to
That is why law itself in subclause defines it as two conditions. One is out of rape and the other is.
Yes.
And then of course it can be loosely used to interpret the way you are.
Father Emmanuel, are these clauses to your mind systematically misused?
Not only systematically but really aggressively misused. And I am very happy that this country does not have an abortion law, because without that law, imagine the disproportion of males and females we have in this country, and imagine if that is ever introduced and legalized, what would be the condition of our dear sisters and mothers and all those people. So that is absolutely right that the country has no abortion law, and I would strongly vouch for not having another or introducing any other law. In fact, I have even objections to some of the clauses that are there. And the church particularly is very clear, the Catholic Church is very clear that life is always a gift of God and nobody can interfere with it.
So even in the conditions that we are talking about right now, you still think there should be no medical termination of pregnancy?
There should be no medical termination of pregnancy, but there is a slight twist on that. Not no medical termination, but in case when the mother's life is really in danger, you're not aborting the child. The purpose is not to abort the child. The purpose is to save the mother.
Netra, let me come to you. The law as it stands right now,
Yes.
does it give enough choice in your view?
I think it absolutely gives no choice in our view. It gives you loopholes. India, unfortunately, is becoming a country more and more of loopholes. Whereas if there were no archaic laws and you could actually see that you need to be pro-choice, it's a woman's body. A woman should have the right to decide what she can or she cannot do with her body. I believe a person should have the right to decide, but that's a separate issue altogether. But a woman should be given the right to decide what she can or cannot do with her body.
This is the
One.
most
And if
bizarre
you say
argument
per
I find.
law, as a woman I'm talking right now, if I was not ready to have a child and I'm being forced to have that child because the law doesn't allow it, or you know, you're wondering if I'm going to be okay with myself or spiritually okay with myself for not having the child, believe me, it's causing me grave psychological trouble at that point, considering you have to have the child, you have to bring up the child. It's a choice a person needs to make, and it's an educated choice a person needs to make.
I don't know
And
from
that
where this
option should be given
I
to the
never
woman.
understand and I never agree about this issue of choice, and a woman has a right over her body. Well, you might have a right over your body. Have I ever seen a woman cutting her hand because she has a right over her body, or piercing her eyes or ears because she has a right over her body, so she can do anything?
Yes.
Netra,
sir,
No,
that
because
if you wish
this
to-
is not your, this is, you're talking about another life. You're not talking about part of your body. There is another life.
Then let me deal with my spiritual side and let me answer to my God. Who
No,
is
that way,
anyone to
no,
decide
that
who
way
my
everybody
God is
can
and
start
what I should
answering to
answer
their
to?
God, and you can start murdering people and say, I will deal with my God, and murder is allowed.
Sir, they-
And
you're
everybody
saying
can
it,
go
you
around
think it's
murdering
not
people.
happening.
where do you stand on this?
Yes.
Vikram, we need a liberal abortion law in our country. Fundamentalists like our Holy Father are against the rights of women to abort. Unfortunately, as Puneet has said, we don't have a liberal law. We need a liberal law, and more importantly, we need accountability. Today, MTP practically, most states don't even register clinics, or if they register, very few. Maharashtra has registered large number of clinics. Unfortunately, what Maharashtra government today is trying to recommend to Government of India is trying to restrict abortion on the pretext of sex selection, female
But
feticide.
that's actually perfectly true, isn't it? If they are restricting the number of clinics, it's also because, on some estimates, 500,000 female fetuses are aborted purely on sex determination grounds.
No,
So it's not that this is not being misused.
yeah, but,
Let's be clear.
But what I'm saying is that the misuse is much larger than sex selection. You know, in terms of, for a significant section of the medical profession, they start their career by doing abortions. So we are not against abortions, but what I'm saying is we want regulation of abortions.
Okay, Maulana,
जनरली मैं फादर को सपोर्ट करूंगा तो यही कहा जाएगा कि मौलवी और फादर एक ही बात करेंगे, दो तो करेंगे नहीं. बट फैक्ट ये है कि शादी वाजिब नहीं है. शादी करने के बाद जिम्मेदारी निभाना वाजिब है. हम बच्चे का सवाल कब करते हैं? जब शादी हो जाती है.
not necessarily, but
वेल जब हम हिंदुस्तान में बात करेंगे तो नेचुरली मैरिज के बाद बच्चे की बात करेंगे, घूम फिर के बच्चा पैदा करने की बात नहीं करेंगे नॉर्मली, अगर जनरल में आप देखें तो, चूँकि जनरल इंडिया आपका प्रोग्राम देख रही है. फादर ने जो बात कही मैं बिल्कुल सपोर्ट करता हूँ, क्योंकि किसी शख्स की आज़ादी का मतलब ये नहीं है कि वो अपने ही बच्चे को मार डाले. ये फ़ैसला वो बच्चा पैदा होने और बच्चे की माँ बनने के पहले कर सकता है कि मुझे इसमें जाना चाहिए या इसमें नहीं जाना चाहिए. जो लॉ है वो बहुत सिंपल सा है, क्योंकि दुनिया में सबसे ज़्यादा कीमती इंसान का इंसान होना है, और अगर इंसान को मारने वाली उसकी अपनी माँ ही बन जाए तो फिर इससे बड़ी बदकिस्मती की बात और कुछ नहीं हो सकती, और वो भी आज़ादी के नाम पे.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.